Hey everybody, this is Raleigh here. We're talking about rolling, and all rolling really is a 360-degree weight transfer. The importance value of rolling is really helping students develop the ability to travel linear, so in a straight line, and usually it's horizontally, but we want to create linear momentum. So rolling allows that. It also allows us to develop angular momentum, which is the circling of the body. And then it helps us develop shape changing, the ability to go from large to small or small to large. And so it really starts putting together the three components that you're going to start seeing in all advanced high level tumbling. So rolling is not just about doing a 360-degree weight transfer. You're also trying to develop now these three concepts. And with rolling, you're also trying to put in max effort. So this is where you're going to start seeing rolls connect, where you see this fluidity, this movement, this power coming, generating through the rolls, and you can see people putting in max effort into the roll. This is going to tell you if they're really ready to start tumbling. So let's dive in. So horizontal versus vertical. There's rolls that are going to go horizontally, and then there's rolls that are going to go vertical. These are usually the handstands, back extension to handstand or handstand rolls. There's a vertical action to them. Rolls that go vertically are going to be more difficult than rolls that travel horizontally. So if you're trying to develop max effort, it's good to start with horizontal connections or stay in the horizontal land for max effort before you try to really push the vertical type of rolling. Okay, so here's some examples of wrong versus right when it comes to rolling. So when we are rolling, we want to stay as close to the surface as possible. We're not actually trying to lift and go big and then come back into the surface. While this might be helpful in fall action, we actually want rolling to be more of a push and a horizontal motion in generating rotation. So if it's a person starting in a tuck stand position, then what we want to do is stay as close to that dotted line. The dotted line is representing basically from floor to the highest point on the body. You want to be able to push and stay as close to that dotted line as possible. So the first one, you can see that the hips are rising and the body is lifting, and that's actually going to prevent the roll. A person who does that tends to just crash. They don't actually have this fluid roll. And so we want to be able to push our center of mass over our contact point. Now, if you look at the feet and hand positions and where the center of mass is going to be, usually in a tuck stand, somebody's going to be putting weight more on their feet. So that means that the center of mass has to travel over the feet, but then the center of mass also has to travel over the hands. So if you look at the first example, where the hips are rising and lifting, the center of mass is not going to be traveling over the hands as easily because the center of mass is now traveling vertically. And so there's more techniques that have to happen to make that work well, but you're not going to be getting the connective rolling going. So we don't really want this positioning on the first one. We want the second one to get that horizontal travel for a connective rolling. We need to learn how to do this. And look at the angle of the shoulders over the hands. There's a lot of fall happening, which is very scary for beginners. Tucked roll, you're in a tucked position, okay? If you look at where the hips are to shoulders, to legs, that space in between. I'm just going to come out of this so you can make sure you understand what I'm saying. So this space right here, you're trying to get that as small as possible. Now, depending on the size of the body will determine how quick close that can get, but you're really trying to get this close to engage the hips with the legs. This is what you're trying to connect. You're trying to round the upper body the best you possibly can. The closer the hands are to the feet, the better, but you're not going to be as stable, and being able to push off the arms might be more tricky or difficult. So you just have to understand the distance here is going to adjust difficulty and stability and all those types of things. The head wants to be looking down, and then it'll start tucking in even further. It doesn't need to start tucked in all the way right off the bat. Okay, straddle rolling. Feet go on either side of the hands as you're in the roll. Piked forward rolls. Notice that the dotted line, K, is representing the height of the body, the highest point. The hands are actually reaching past the feet. Now, this drawing of this abstract character is not proportionate to every body, but it is proportionate to what drawing proportions would look like. The main thing I want you to see here is it's going from large to small, and then you can see where the hands are placing on the ground to push the hips off the ground, staying compressed. Oftentimes the rise in the piked roll, people start standing up, opening the hips up too early, and that's why they can't make it. You need to stay compressed, pushing down on the floor, and finding the coordination with that. That's what makes pike rolling so difficult. Pike roll backwards, it's just the reverse of how you lower down. So you're reaching behind you, placing your hands on the ground, lowering the body into the surface. So just understanding where that goes when it comes to pike rolls backwards. Okay, so front support rolling. This is a way of getting you to move your center of mass more distance, because with the front support position, you're going to have to kind of push more horizontally and get that center of mass to travel a further distance. Again, the dotted line is representing the height, the highest point in the front support, and then what you're trying to do is get to that tuck position without rising above it. So you're really trying to what we'd call more like a body wave. We're really trying to ravel into or unravel, those types of words you'll hear later on if you go to higher tumbling, but you're really trying to close and ravel the body up instead of just send it as far over there as you possibly can and then error on the body rising above that dotted line. You do not want to rise above the dotted line, because we want to stay horizontal. Okay, so now we get into vertical rolling, and this is the handstand. So going back to this position, if we go to the one that says wrong and the hips are jumping above the dotted line, okay, it is possible to start in a tuck stand, and it is possible to jump up into the handstand position. But the problem with that is you're not actually rolling from the tuck stand to the handstand. You're just jumping vertically. And so you're not trying to fall. So that is not the roll action. The roll happens from the handstand going to the candlestick, which is the middle picture, into the tuck. Now I want that dotted line again to represent how the body is going from large to small and how you want to have a smooth, even transition from handstand to candlestick to tuck. You're really looking for that smooth line, and that line angle will change based off of body sizes and how small people can tuck. Okay, so you go backwards roll to front support. So this is a horizontal roll, but again, dotted line. If you're in the backwards roll to front support, you can't start shooting those toes above the dotted line. You got to pull them down, and you got to pull the hips down. The main thing about rolling horizontally, or really just rolling in general, is everything needs to go back into the surface. And so even if you're in a handstand, notice how the body has to come into the surface, and you're really trying to shrink the shape to absorb the force. So by shape changing, you're actually changing the forces, and you're rolling to absorb the force instead of flat backing or falling. So the same thing with this is, as you're pulling the toes and hips over to get to that front support, you're shape changing to absorb the forces that are going to be happening. Back extension rolling, now we're going vertical. So how you get into the extension roll could be from a tuck, could be from a pike. What matters is that you get to the candlestick position and you're able to go from candlestick to handstand. And the hollow position, the rounding position of the candlestick needs to stay rounding and opening up too straight. Oftentimes you'll see an arch in the transition between the candlestick and the handstand, and the body will arch, the toes will drop. Again, just that line showing you that there should be this smooth rising of the toes. Handstand to front support. So this would be like if I do a back extension roll to handstand, just understanding one way you can get back to the surface is to lever down to a front support or push-up position. So allowing that shoulder angle to close. This is just good for building strength. It's supplementary for bars with casting. It's good for pressing. It builds strength and body control. You can also land in a pike stand, but understanding how you're going to get out of the roll, you could step out, lever into a lunge. But the closing, basically going back to our crawling words, the bilateral, the moving of both shoulders is going to build strength and coordination we need for casting, pressing, other things. So this is a good position. Now, you're not going to necessarily connect rolling like this. If you wanted to connect, you would pike down, but it's a good thing to know about on how to get out. So our front support position, I'm just bringing this up because it's a shape that you can use to go into rolls, or you can use to get out of rolls, as we just saw. So you can start in a front support and go into a forward roll, or you could start in a tuck stand and finish a backwards tuck roll into a front support. So understand that the front support position is something that you use to go in or you use to come out of, and it's just opening the body up. It's going to require more effort, and so that's the reason why it has value. The handstand position is great for all rolling because it helps with bars when it comes to learning to do giants, clear up handstands. And it also helps you understand how to fall and to feel your center of mass drop, which is really good for cartwheels, round-offs, handsprings, where they're feeling the center of mass actually go into the surface. So understanding the importance of doing handstand rolling is to feel your center of mass go into the surface. The candlestick shape is a transition shape that needs to happen whether you're going up into the handstand or you're coming down out of the handstand. This is how you distribute the force amongst the body. When people do candlesticks, the errors they make is that their toes and hips are not rising or falling in a vertical fashion. We don't want to see the angle of the hips deviate or the toes really deviate until they start making contact on the surface or the body is opening up to the handstand. So that's usually the error you'll see, is a lack of verticalness from hips to toes in that transitional shape. So that is rolling, 360-degree weight transfers. Now, you can roll with different shapes, straddles, tucks, pikes, and that's going to be great for just variations, but the real value of rolling is going to become with connection. So it's your ability to do tucked rolls forwards, tucked rolls backwards, connected, and generating this max effort speed that you can see. And doing straddle rolls connected where your feet don't touch the ground. These are usually called Stalder rolling, and that's going to build strength. But the connective rolling is usually where most of the value is. When you start doing the handstand rolling or landing in push-up position, that's more for engaging the mental side of the roll, because you're going to be crossing that over to usually bars. And so usually handstand rolling is more applicable to bars, and it's more about being mentally engaged, smoothness. There's not a lot of speed to it. While you can connect handstand rolling, it's more about staying engaged in the moment instead of doing like max effort where you're just trying to push as hard as you possibly can. So kind of understanding the different goals that you have. You can start turning rolls when you go to handstand rolling. Tuck up to handstand, you can half turn it, you can full turn it, you can do back extension roll to half, which could turn into a blind or a reverse pivot. So that again is applicable to bars. Back extension rolls are a very good supplementary skill to learn before you do back handsprings. So knowing how to do the back extension roll is going to help you understand how to open your hips and shoulders and find timing. So that's just another simple one to say, hey, can you move your center of mass this distance? And do you have the ability, the coordination to move your shoulders and hips to hit the handstand? So back extension rolls are great for back handsprings. Handstand forward rolling is great for understanding, does the person have the ability to do front tucks or front layouts, simply because if I can lift my body up to upside down and I can shrink it on the down, then I probably have some ability to be coordinated when it comes to lifting my feet over my head and staying in that tuck shape. So there you have it. That's all I'm going to talk about with rolling 360 degrees weight transfers.